lost Vangelis. And no, it's not Vangelis. I was corrected throughout the years many times by folks who actually knew him. Well, I wasn't corrected by John Anderson. By then, I already knew it was Vangelis. But what an amazing musician, self-taught keyboardist, heavily influenced so many musicians who were not only doing soundtrack music, because of course he won an Oscar for doing the Chariots of Fire soundtrack, but so many other people. And then of course he went into pop with John Anderson, with Friends of Mr. Caro, and I played that stuff on the radio. You know, of all the people that we have lost in the last little while, I have to admit that Vangelis is probably an artist that I have played on the radio more than almost any other artist, mainly because I took a detour to playing new age music when the NAC format was going crazy. And of course, Vangelis was a big part of that. We played so much of his music, and not just the soundtrack work, but everything else he did. China album, I remember, L'Apocalypse des Animaux. There was like Chariots of Fire came out, Blade Runner, 1492 Conquest of Paradise, Blade Runner, the trilogy 25th anniversary. This was a gentleman who's atmospheric but new age, feeling music, ambient music. He had a real sort of pocket in that new age feeling. Didn't like the term, but like I said, he was self-taught. And his real name was Papathanasso, his last name, Papathanathou. But amazing. Whenever we played, there were certain albums. Let me look at some certain albums that I would play, especially when we came up to like the direct album, I remember in 1988. That's an album that we put on. Oceanic is another one from 1996. There were so many pieces on that we played on the New Age format. But I remember with Chariots of Fire, when that came out and his version of Jerusalem. Remember that song? Like my father-in-law used to tell me, my first wife's dad would tell me that they used to sing this in England in church. Because I remember hearing that and going, asking him, what is this piece? I've heard it before. And he'd say, oh yeah, we sang Jerusalem. And that was on the A side of Chariots of Fire. But such a sad, I'll get some of your comments here in a second. Lived a long life. He and John Anderson, according to John Anderson, they would get into these discussions about what worked and what didn't. And Vangelis did not suffer fools. He was one of those guys who just kind of told it as it was. Reinhardt says, no, Jamie Martinez. I think you mean rest in peace. Vangelis, yes, Jorvy Eyes. So sad. Jamie Martinez, rest in peace. My bad. Oh, no problem. Some people are doing the clapping hands thing as far as, job well done in your music. Yes, Gore's Eyes M. I don't know what that means. What yes would have sounded like if he was on. And Anderson was trying to get him. He had told me, John Anderson had said they wanted to get Vangelis in the band. Yes. Very true. Jeff Hansen, sad to hear, one of my favorites. Yes, Gorge Eyes. I think I don't know how to say that. Too bad that did not happen. I agree. It would have been interesting. When you lose Rick Wakeman or Rick Wakeman is not there anymore, and you always look for what's going to fill in the gaps. And of course, Yes are famous for filling in the gaps many, many times over in as far as the band. Michael's Sia says, love his Blade Runner soundtrack. So did I. Alex McAllister, his music seemed to get a bit deeper. Oh, that much more deeper. It's true, and that's why I think in the New Age format, there was a soundtrack that doesn't show up here that I'm looking on Wiki that we played. It was a French soundtrack, and I don't have my old playlist. I just found them a few days ago from when I was doing New Age music, the NAC format in Edmonton in 1986, 87, 88, and 89. Mostly 87 when we first really got it going. That there was a French soundtrack we found, and I can't seem to find it. Something about Les Animaux, not L'Apocalypse des Animaux, another one. I can't remember what it was, but let me look at his main soundtrack. And oh, here it is. First, in 1972, Make Your Dream Last Longer Than the Night, Earth, Heaven and Hell. Let me see if I can find Spiral. We played. I remember Spiral was a big album. China was another one. I can't find that soundtrack. It was a French soundtrack, and of course, it would be. I can't seem to find it. Anyway, we played a long piece from it that, and anytime I've looked at his soundtracks, I wouldn't be able to find it. Let me get to some comments. Yeah, Aphrodite's Child. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah. John Adams. He made, John, thank you. Very well said. He made classical music very, very cool. And there are artists like that. I mean, I always look at the ECM label. The ECM brought a lot of people into jazz because it was feeling kind of jazz. There's more to it. It was very atmospheric, some of it on the ECM label. And that's not Vangelis, but Vangelis kind of did that with his own music, where he brought you in to a genre of music that otherwise you would not have listened to, perhaps. Right? Bruce Hornsby did that to me with a lot of genres where I go, I'm not a big blues guy. He does blues. I like it. Start listening to more blues. I've always liked jazz, so that wasn't a problem. Antarctica from 1983. Yes, 1992, 1492, Conquest of Paradise, Blade Runner. Everyone talks about, of course, Chariots of Fire. And that was one of those albums that, again, other people who otherwise would never listen to that type of music were able to hear the feeling in the music and the melody in the music, and in spite of themselves would go out there and buy it and would open their... Jan Gabarek did that to me on the ECM label. There was just people that would be, and Vangelis is so in that pocket of someone who would introduce you with melody and with like that magical, ominous feeling that he was so good at portraying in his music, that would let you go in and start listening to that sort of music. How many artists can do that? You know, the Beatles were always the ultimate example of a band that would just bring people into this lane. And Vangelis brought a lot of people into that lane. If I can say anything about this man, that's the biggest thing. Because I wasn't listening to, well, I was listening to some ECM stuff when Chariots of Fire came out. But once that came out, I remember going, oh, it can be this commercial without really selling out at all. And so many people that I knew who were rockers, especially proggers, would go out and pick out and listen to Chariots of Fire and then go back to older albums. But Blade Runner is another example. 3 years later, crazy. Well, Blade Runner was 94. Yeah, crazy. 2007, they released Blade Runner Trilogy, the 25th anniversary. But the albums themselves, like, let me see what I can find here. Oh, these are collection albums. Tons of compilation albums. If you look at Vangelis, I got to say his name right because it is Vangelis. You look at the amount of compilation albums he had where you were able to pick and choose, because his albums earlier on had a lot of different things on it, right? And then I found the 80s and 90s, he would have a more consistent sound sometimes on some of his albums, even though I didn't know all his albums. But I have played Vangelis on the radio more, I think, than any other artist, because I was involved in pop radio where I played Chariots of Fire. But more than that, I was involved in the NAC format for so long. But he was 79 years old. As I mentioned a while ago, he's self-taught, you know, and as John Anderson would point out to me, he was one of those guys who didn't suffer fools at all. He just spoke his mind. He's a little stubborn at times, but he knew what he wanted. He knew what he wanted to hear in the speakers. You know, so it was good. You know, I love that. Let's look at some of the, I'll wrap it up here. Création du Monde was a masterpiece. This is from Kevin. Julia says, the album Short Stories. Nocturne, beautiful. The Yes, George, or Gore. Oh, I see. I got it. Oh, Brian says the Chariots of Fire theme was better than the movie itself. I like the movie a lot, but you might not be that off with that movie. That movie got a lot of accolades, of course. Blade Runner, absolutely. South Jersey Matt, thank you for saying his music will live on forever. I mean, it's always the obvious thing to say, but it's true. This is a time where now people are going to go into Spotify or Apple or whatever your streaming service is, or your CD collection, LP collection. I've got a few Vangelis albums back there. Oh, you're gay. Yeah. Thank you. Michael, thank you for the tribute. You're very welcome, and please like our video. Kind of a shock today. I haven't talked about Vangelis in a while. Haven't thought about him for a while. The last time I really thought about Vangelis was when I interviewed John Anderson, and he was very open about the fact, like I said a while ago, that he's solid. Vangelis was solid in his resolve on what he wanted, knew what he wanted to hear, and he was just one of those guys. I'm going to fish out that clip, and I'm going to put it up concerning John and Vangelis and put it up in the next hour or something. So I appreciate that. Anyway, thanks everyone who joined on and just kind of reminisced a little bit with me today. I haven't been on a little while. Just been dipping a little bit lately. I'm just overwhelmed with so many things to do, but doing better and nice to be here. And I want to thank everyone for always supporting our channel. I appreciate that. If anyone has any other comments, please get them on. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Pronounced George. Oh, I see. Yes, George Eyes. Julie Varon. I was in the Palace, the Blaka district in Athens one night in '89, and there was a swarming of locals. Indeed, it was Vangelis that was catching all the attention. Exciting moment in time. No kidding. Thanks for sharing that. Grover Baker, rest in peace to a master. Well said. His vision and music were awesome. Aphrodite's Child is a must, along with the rest of his work. John Anderson stuff also. Bruce Gelman, just listened to El Greco a few days ago. Mark Burchett, thanks Mark for being on. Thank you for all you do, John. I appreciate that. Thanks, Mark. Tim, Nocturne. Donna Ray Reed, Paul Star, has been embedded in my brain for 46 years. Yeah. There's so much things that I played throughout the years of Vangelis' music. And you know when something's good. When you're presenting a new type of music in a radio market, in this case, it was Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, we were presenting 42 hours of new age music, basically, with a Windham Hill, Higher Octave, Narada, all those labels, and bands like Latitude from other labels, a sprinkle of ECM, and presenting Vangelis' music. And you watch to see what got the attention. You wait to see what people, Jean-Michel Jarre, yeah, or Jarre, as some people say. I played Oxygen many, many times, but that was another one from the old guard that you put on there. You go, wow, Jean-Michel and Vangelis were ahead of their time putting that music on years before the New Age format, NAC, which is the Wave in LA, the Quiet Storm, WNUA, I think it was, in San Fran. I forget, I'm losing my channels. There was a good station in Chicago, Portia from that station I interviewed. But when you look at what got the calls, what made people phone the radio station, and to even in 86, 87, I would put something on from Chariots of Fire and people would call and say, who is that? And you'd think, doesn't everyone know Chariots of Fire? They were rediscovering it or discovering it for the first time. And the strength of that soundtrack was still, you know, in spite of all these top-notch musicians from Windham Hill and Narada, like I said, Higher Octave, they were doing New Age like nobody's business. They were calling for Vangelis' music going, what is that? And like I said, back then, let me go back to the earlier. Back then, it was L'Apocalypse des Animaux, Chariots of Fire, Blade Runner. And by the time I got to Mask is another one from 85, Direct from 88, Voices in 95 when I was in Vancouver doing the NAC format, and Oceanic was huge in that market because Vancouver was a very new agey kind of sort of like a little LA when it came to the NAC format. And Vangelis was always, bar none, one of the top artists that we played. So there you go. Thank you for everyone who's liked our video, by the way. Sort of a, I don't know, it's, when these people die, it's a moment in time for you, but you start looking back and going, what was I doing when I heard this? Doesn't everyone do that when someone dies? Oh, I was doing this, or I was married to that person, I was dating that person, I was living there when I was listening to that, or I bought that stereo when I got that Vangelis album, or whoever it may be, fill in the slots. And they bring us back to a happier time, maybe, right? Maybe not. But they kind of, it's a reference point of the diaries of our life, whether it's written or not. I hate to sound corny, but it really is. And Vangelis to me represents me going through, when I was started the NAC format in Western Canada, divorce, phone calls. This is artists that would make me in a log cabin in Edmonton get 100 phone calls a night, something I'd never seen doing AC radio or hot AC. I thought, why am I getting 100 calls a night? Because this music, and I'm sad to say that this format doesn't exist anymore, only if you stream it. This music did that, and Vangelis was a huge part of that for me, well beyond Chariots of Fire. So a testament to him. Aren't you looking back now when you think, there's 61 people right now watching this. And please, by the way, like our video. A lot of you are going back, and most of you I know, probably Chariots of Fire, but L'Apocalypse des Animaux, I'm looking back at some of these soundtracks, some of these albums like Spiral, for instance, which was heavily influential for a lot of people. China, like I said, Mask, Direct, Voices, Oceanic. These are things that I played on the radio, and I go back and I said, I was doing that then. Or I was single for a lot of years at that point. This album made it okay to do whatever that was when you go through. Every time we lose someone, it's references going back to like I said, the either invisible or that tangible diary in our minds of what we did. And that's what we do when we lose people. It's kind of a sad thing. He was such a huge artist, and everyone said Vangelis because it sounded better. But as John Anderson, and like I said, by the time I interviewed John Anderson, I knew how to say it, but it was Vangelis. But I'm on tape many times in the early days of probably this video or on the radio. In the 80s, I would say Vangelis. No one called once to correct me back then, not one person. But it's the time before the internet. Oh, soil festivities, yeah. Antarctica, thank you. That was from DD. Great projects. And there was that thing I remember hearing him say when he does a project, he goes knee deep in it, he's just swarmed into the vibe of whatever that was, right? Whether he did it quickly or not. It was just the type of guy he was. And he was an intense guy, according to John Anderson. He was intense. And as I've mentioned many times throughout this broadcast, did not suffer fools. I mean, he look at any picture. Look at the picture we put out. He's a serious guy, for the most part, and wasn't going around smiling. We were talking about Mama Judd the other day passing away, and every single picture, in spite of the fact of what she was going through, she was always smiling with her mouth and her eyes. Not everyone's connected that way or wired that way. It's just the way it goes. But especially with this one, moments in time for me where I needed a format, or I needed to promote a format, to be an announcer at a format, create this format in Canada, in Western Canada at least, where I had 100 calls a night, and Vangelis was a part of that. So I say thank you for, making a difference. Let me read some of your comments, and then a lot of comments. Thank you very much for everyone. See, what does that say? They used to say that soundtrack, jazz, and soundtrack and jazz and new age was 5% of the music that sold worldwide. When I was in that NAC format, someone once told me, he says, yeah, but you can niche. At least you can get that 5% and they'll love you more than anything else. And we had better ratings in Edmonton in 88 and 89 than the morning show had playing new age or symphonic or soundtrack music. And that, playing Ennio Morricone, The Mission, which is classical music, basically. But people responded to it where that's another reason why the symphonic sounding stuff from Vangelis sounded good right beside, well, of course, beside Kitaro or Andreas Vollenweider, the Swiss harpist. This stuff all really went together. And the saddest part for me is the fact that format, the NAC format, the Wave format, the Quiet Storm format, is not out there because, man, the world needs it now. And I still listen to that music all the time. People say, what do you listen to beyond rock? Spa music on XM Sirius. And they still play Vangelis. Let me get to your comments. Oh, a lot of comments. Pastor, I'm sorry if I'm saying that right. Huge fan here. Guido says, Heaven and Hell was my start, and what a great choice. Simon, the message retracted. Yes says, I have everything he has published. Wow. Vince Del Rosso, rest in peace, Master. I love you, Vangelis. South Jersey Matt, did John Anderson really collaborate with Vangelis? Yeah, of course. Friends of Mr. Caro. And another album, too. Was there 2 or 3? Grover Parker. Oh, Klaus Schultz died a week ago. We did a thing on Klaus Schultz. Thank you, John. Blessings from Grover. Andy Kazi. How about Heaven and Hell when John made his first appearance with the beautiful Long Go So Clear? Zed Ebb says John and Vangelis did 3 excellent. There you go. 3 excellent albums. I only had 2 of them. Mark Burchett. Hey, Mark. Who remembers Como Radio? I do. I remember Como, the TV station in, wasn't that, not Seattle. What was the city where that was from? Was that Seattle? Alex, 666 is such a hidden gem. Hasn't remained as relevant as the other prog albums, but songs like Four Horsemen are amazing. Blade Runner is also the best score. Zeb Eb, The Dragon, Heaven and Hell, etc. Maroslav says, sad, sad, sad. See, we have 78 people right now. Think about that. 81 just turned. 81 people came on here to reminisce and to talk and to inquire and to mourn and just discuss Vangelis' music. What does that say? And we will have rockers who come on here, and it's not about the numbers all the time. It's the time of the day. It's people who know this channel, people who either like my face or they don't, or, but that says something about Vangelis' music. When you have an artist that has music that is like classical music, which is cerebral, it gets under your skin, it just gets to you and it moves you and it stays with you, that says something. And that's not all I have to say about that. Okay. Simon says, can you listen to Vangelis' Invisible Connections as if you listen to Blade Runner? You finally get with the landscape of Invisible Connections. Orel says, rest in peace. Our yes friend says, South Jersey, yes, private collection, Page of Life, Friends and Mr. Caro. Tim says, John Vangelis, at first I thought that was the man's name. Oh, is that right? We have a lot of those. Everyone has a lot of those kind of things. Guido says, Schultz and Vangelis, damn, what a loss. Very true in that lane of music, right? Alex, you're right, John, was listening to John Vangelis driving through the desert in Jordan. Wow. I always found Vangelis' music was good for driving music. I found that listening to albums like Western Spaces, not his album, but the ambient stuff would sort of bring me to an area that I couldn't explain. And Vangelis always did that. Hold on. Let me look that up. Oh, yeah. Kim Berhani. Richard Bermer, Steve Roach. The original one had three of them. Then they re-released it, and there was only two guys on the album. But there was that thing when I drive through Sedona on my way to Sedona, when I would be in the desert driving by myself back in the days before I met Shannon, I would drive by myself and listen to ambient music a lot. And some of Vangelis's music was definitely in that ambient vein. And I noticed that a lot of prog rockers love ambient music because there's a lot of prog rock that in between the big pieces, it sounds ambient. Pink Floyd could be that way as well, of course. Henry Francois says, I always like the name Francois, Antarctica. Guido, Direct was my classic. Yeah, I love Direct. Simon, DD, just looking at things that weren't repeated. Guido says, who has the box set Delectius? I do not have that. Thomas, I'll be playing The City tonight. Love that album. Our Yes fan says soundtrack of Alexander. Pablo, Klaus Schultz died a week ago. Yep, we know. We did a thing on him. Patrick Niles, one of the great modern composers. Very, very true. How many of you are looking back now when you bought your album or heard the song for the first time, maybe on an NAC format or a quasi-classical format or a university format? University stations played a lot of Vangelis. You certainly didn't hear it on AC radio. You might have heard Chariots of Fire on AC radio, because when I was in AC in the beginning, we played Chariots of Fire. And then when I went from AC radio to playing, that's adult contemporary, as most of you know, to going into the NAC format, New Age, I played so much Vangelis music, it was ridiculous. And we'd be going through, I'd call my friends and going, do you have old albums? Our station didn't have a big budget. And they bring in albums. We'd go listen to them after I got off at midnight and find more music and put them on cart, the little 8-track things that's the only way I can explain it for people who aren't in radio. Our music was all on cart. Quality wasn't great, but that's way you could, like you did with a cassette when you were young, go to your friend's place, record it on cassette, and then you'd have a copy of it. Oh, Guido says 13 CD box set, Delectus is great. Oh, good. Thank you. Ronnie Parker, the melody of the song is very iconic. Kevin Crouch, so sad, sir. Mark Burchett, Mannheim Steamroller, good example of more moody music. I mean, Mannheim Steamroller's music, Fresh Air 1, 2, and 3, which I played the hell out of. I like the Greek mythology one. I think that was number 5, if I remember correctly. But we played so much of that. I interviewed Chip Davis. I don't know where it is. Where is it? Where is it? Give me a second. I don't know where I put it. It's there someplace. I've got an autographed Chip Davis album. All of the 2 bottom rows there are all New Age music. From stuff that I played, a lot of Windham Hill stuff, some Vangelis. See, for anybody who, people are telling me that I didn't have any gray. I have gray. I don't dye my hair, but there you go. Here we are talking about my grays. Not appropriate right now. Mark Burchett said, I rock as hard as it gets, but love music. Yeah, you love his music. Rockers love Vangelis' music. Why were there at one point like 87 people on here? 87 people on a rock channel. On a rock channel. Almost everything we do is pop and rock, mostly rock. And somehow everyone's on here wanting to talk about Oceanic. Thank you. Because his music is like that. Because, well, good music is good music, right? It doesn't really matter about genres. I do categorize, and I didn't do it before, but I used to categorize because I sold all my CDs a few years ago and went to RDAT, the little mini cassette things. And then I started collecting it again, and I miss CDs. But the bottom, all this is rock, and the bottom 2 are, there's another row down there. But that's all this kind of music, the ambient New Age music. I'll get to a few. Oh, Mark Burchett, Jan Hammer, another one. Yeah, I forget the label Jan Hammer was in after he did his poppy soundtrack stuff. Oh, CMO Butts, did he do a few songs with Demi Rousseau? I don't know if he did. I would be surprised if he didn't. But one of my best friends was a huge Demi Russo fan. I remember. Oh, him. Yeah, Mark. Thank you. I'm just getting to them. Love Direct. Patrick Niles. Yes. Played it on the radio. Oh, you're mentioning some good ones. RA71 Net Zero. John Seri. Yeah. Steve Roach. Michael Stearns. Oh, Michael Stearns has, what's that space? I mean, he's released a lot of space albums, but Michael Stearns, I used to meditate to one of his albums. Oh, just give me a second. I might be able to find it. Give me 3 seconds. I love this album so much, it's worth it. Oh, it's driving me crazy. We listened to a lot of stuff like this, the Windham Hill Collection stuff. Philip Auberg was my favorite, but the keyboard players really were shining, with the exception of like Michael Hedges on guitar. He was great. Will Ackerman, Alex DeGrassi, and somebody mentioned Fresh Air. But see, look at the connections we're making on a rock channel. People are talking about. I was talking about ECM, the ECM label, which is like a lot of it. I like the spacey jazz stuff they had on there. And we're going into the ambient musicians that everyone's talking about that are in the same vein. But one of the kings, who's the king of that? Who was the king? Who was doing it a long time before everyone else? It's Vangelis. You know, he was doing that. And there was been a lot of other people like Brian Eno. Here we go. Denis Rousseau was in Aphrodite's Child. Thank you. Encounter by Michael Stearns. I don't know if it's Encounter. I don't know. I don't want to go too off topic here, but let me see. I've got it back there. You got me curious now. Yeah, there's Michael. It would have been from before, it was pre-80s. No, Planetary Unfolding, that's it called. That's it. If you've not heard that album, if you want to go on a trip, not that I want to promote another artist while I'm talking about Vangelis, but I'm positive that's oh no, that might not be it. Hold on. I just wanted to let you know what album that was from. Yeah, Planetary Unfolding, that's the one. Michael Stearns, that's a trippy album. Put headphones on, turn the lights off, and just enjoy. So there you go. So to reiterate, and thank you for everyone who's come on here. Please, I'll read your comments. I'm not finished yet. He was 79 years old and he was self-taught and he didn't take any crap. Just look at his face when you're looking at his picture. He's just one of those guys. He knew what he wanted. From here to the speakers, Vangelis had an idea of the vision, and few artists can do that. He was doing that genre of music a long time before, or at least popularized it a long time before many had. So please, by the way, like our video. We'd appreciate that. It does give longevity to the video. It does make a difference. And please subscribe to our channel. We're trying to reach 100,000 subscribers. Jay Gregory says he stuck to his own ideas, a real original. I couldn't have said it better. That's it. He knew what he wanted. Our yes friend says, without Vangelis, would there have been a Brian Eno? Michael, Jean-Michel Jarre, yeah, Kitaro. I like Kitaro's music an awful lot. I think a lot of it sounded the same in the early days. But Kitaro was a big part of that format as well, going way back when. Like, it's hard for me to leave now because we have 72 people talking about Vangelis. So, but I will say, yes, Pablo, Vangelis has a lot of unreleased material. I hear an incredible amount of unreleased material. That's a whole other lane we're going into now. He's kind of like in the Prince category, or even more so. I'd heard he has, like, I'd say dungeons, like just crazy amounts of digital and analog stuff that hopefully will see the light of day. I'm happy that Prince's music's being released. I'm not the biggest Prince fan, but I'm a fan of going, well, if people like it, they're going to buy it. If it's not any good, they're not going to buy it. The only bad part about that is, did he want it released? That's the thing, right? Zappa has a lot too, yeah. They didn't mention what he died of. Let me just double check. At the point where I was going in here, the first story that came out did not mention, yeah, there's a story on Denis Rousseau. Let me make sure. I'm just reading as I'm on live. This story doesn't say. If there's an update, we will put it in the description of the video, as we usually do if something. Oh, DD, Andreas Vollenweider, yeah. Where is it? Hold on. I've got the trilogy album, as well as I think the best album from Andreas Vollenweider. If you're a rocker, buy Down to the Moon from, I think, 86, 87. But this is the trilogy, Caverna Magica, Behind the Gardens, White Winds. If you're a rocker, if you're a prog fan, buy Andreas Vollenweider, but buy Down to the Moon. I think that's the best album he's ever released. Whiskey 666 me, hey there. Nice video, dude. Greetings from, I can't make that out. Are you from Great Britain? I can't, your flag's too small. I can't see it. Jeremiah says 1942 movie should be completed, remastered now. The best soundtrack. Oh, 1492. Yeah, of course. Oh, Norway. Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you. You know, technology, now and then you get these little sprinkles of, oh my God, we can do that. Even though what I'm saying is something we've been able to do for a long time. Orel, a cheers from Spain. Thank you. But we should wrap it up unless someone else has some things to say concerning Vangelis. An amazing loss in music, but you know, not a short life. He was 79 years old. No one who's 79 would be happy to leave the earth. Let's be clear on that. I remember a psychic told me years ago that I was going to live till I was, I think she said 86 or 87. Won't be happy those years if I do get to live that long. So no, I mean, people want to stick around. This living thing that we're doing, this listening to music and sharing ideas together is pretty cool. So may he rest in peace. Thank you for everyone who's come on and gave me some comments. Ciao all, yes. So take good care of yourself. May he rest in peace. Man, the years I've spent playing Vangelis' music on NAC radio. When I left rock and AC and decided to go into, and then it turned into smooth jazz, and then I couldn't do that too much longer. So, now we're getting like 9 million comments. Thanks, John. Mark Burchett. Oriel says, well, now he's in a better place. Well, that's what we say, right? Jason says, I learned about Vangelis from John Anderson, Friends of Mr. Caro. I think you're not alone there, that's for sure. And when you look at Chariots of Fire and then Friends of Mr. Caro, you look at that kind of success in itself, by itself, just that would be amazing to have. And look at the body of work he has. So I'm going to go into Spotify and I'm going to, oh, someone says something interesting here. Miroslav says, I just read Antarctica was the most prolific movie in history of Japan cinematography. Oh. Sad. It's a sad thing. Anyway, thank you for the multiple people who came on here to talk about Vangelis. Please share the video or like the video, or you know what? Subscribe to our channel. We'd appreciate that. So take good care of yourself, guys. Stay safe and check out our other videos.